Welcome back to CIA Declassified, the broadcast that forces you to confront the reality hiding within the archives. Last episode, we dissected the files on Operation Chaos and the illegal surveillance of American citizens. Today, we shift focus from the institutional disregard for the law to the institutional disregard for human integrity itself. We're investigating Project Artichoke, the direct predecessor to the infamous MKUltra program, active primarily between 1951 and 1953. Artichoke was the CIA's brutal foundational attempt to master the ultimate secret, total behavioral control over human subjects. The core motivation was pure Cold War panic. The Korean War led to persistent fears that U.S. prisoners of war were being brainwashed by Soviet and Chinese interrogators. The urgent, frantic question within the intelligence community became, could we do the same? Could we protect ourselves against it? And could we use it to create highly deniable operatives? The CIA's technical services staff authorized Project Artichoke under the file number we are analyzing today, CIA RDP 53000 18R0005 001200002-3. This document is a directive to explore all non-conventional means of interrogation, truth serum application, and memory manipulation. The strategic objective was not just to extract information, but to engineer it, to induce a deep, irreversible amnesia regarding specific events, or conversely, to implant entirely new false memories or behavioral commands. The ultimate goal was to create an operative who could be turned on and off like a machine. The analysis focuses on three primary areas: the combination of chemical agents and hypnosis, the pursuit of perfect amnesia, and the documentation of ethical collapse among the project's physicians. Let's drill down into the terrifying cocktail of methodologies sanctioned under Project Artichoke. The project's lead researchers quickly discarded traditional interrogation and moved directly to three synergistic tools: chemical agents, hypnosis, and isolation. The chemical agents were the starting point. LSD-25, originally developed by Sandoz Pharmaceuticals, was the primary tool. Unlike the recreational use that came later, Artichoke subjects were given massive, often debilitating doses. The goal was to break down the subject's cognitive structure, making them susceptible to suggestion. Chemical disruption. The LSD was used to induce a state of extreme psychological confusion, dissolving the subject's sense of self and reality. In this hyper-vulnerable state, researchers used intense, repeated hypnotic commands. Hypnotic programming. The files confirm efforts to link specific phrases or visual cues to pre-programmed behavioral triggers. The aim was to create a post-hypnotic suggestion that could be activated later outside the lab, compelling the subject to perform a specific action, even if it violated their conscious will. In sensory deprivation, subjects were sometimes held in isolation for days, often in windowless, soundproof rooms. This was intended to accelerate the breakdown of identity and critical resistance, amplifying the effect of the chemical and hypnotic inputs. The goal was explicitly stated in a chilling memo, quote, to determine whether an individual can be brought under complete control to carry out complicated tasks, including acts requiring violence, and have no recollection of his activities upon awakening, end quote. This is the creation of the perfect assassin, an agent whose actions are untraceable and whose mind is a blank slate regarding the event. Quote number 1 from an Artichoke progress report in early 1952. Quote, Subject 4 has displayed total compliance under combined chemical and hypnotic duress. Initial trials demonstrate the capacity to follow a 9-step operational command set and successfully induce a state of deep targeted amnesia related to the sequence upon command phrase. End quote. And then another quote from a memo concerning operational viability. Quote, the critical vulnerability remains the durability of the implanted amnesia. Further research must focus on reinforcing the memory barrier to withstand high-stress interrogation or self-analysis. End quote. The focus shifted from what do they know to what can we make them do and what can we make them forget. We now confront the ethical and human costs documented within the Project Artichoke files. The project quickly became obsessed with creating perfect amnesia. Researchers used powerful combinations of barbiturates, truth serums, amphetamines, and LSD, often administered intravenously to create a push-pull effect on the central nervous system. This was designed to tear down the brain's natural defenses, paving the way towards hypnotic suggestion. The files contain devastating clinical descriptions of the psychological damage inflicted on test subjects, many of whom were institutionalized, marginalized, or vulnerable individuals who could not legally consent to the procedures. The ethical collapse was total. The physicians and researchers involved were operating under a strategic mandate that prioritized national security gains over the Hippocratic Oath. The documentation reveals a deep internal debate over the use of subjects who were terminal or mentally impaired, but the program proceeded under the cold logic of necessity. The primary finding from ARTICHOKE, which led directly to the creation of MKUltra, was that total, reliable, long-term control was impossible. While temporary control and profound memory disruption were achieved, the implanted behavior was unstable, prone to degradation, and often resulted in the permanent psychological destruction of the subject. The sheer arrogance required to treat the human soul as a code to be written and erased was ultimately met by the complexity of human biology. The CIA later classified the failures, preferring the fiction of the perfect spy to the documented reality of the broken subjects. We conclude our analysis of the early documents linked to Project Artichoke. The existence and scope of this program confirmed that U.S. intelligence treated the direct chemical and psychological manipulation of human identity as an actionable strategic objective. The implication is that political fear and institutional ambition drove the agency past every humanitarian and ethical constraint. This research represents the ultimate violation of the mind's sovereign territory. If this documented truth has opened your mind and reinforced your determination to understand the world as it truly operates, we rely on your support. First, like this episode and leave us a detailed 5-star review wherever you listen. This is how the analysis exposes the deepest ethical failures. Second, share this episode with someone obsessed with pharmacology, cognitive science, or the dark side of behavioral research. We need more sharp minds analyzing these documented facts. Now, a programming note for our listeners. Our next episode will look at the CIA's attempts to manipulate public belief through the strategic application of absurdity and self-contradictory language. We will analyze the files linked to Project Poppycock, the highly classified linguistic experiment designed to strategically insert illogical, instantly discrediting narratives into an adversarial political landscape. For our next investigation, we will dissect and analyze CIA document RDP 90 00445 R0003 001 0002 5-2, a file concerning strategic absurdity and linguistic destabilization. What were the core principles investigated for engineering non-sequitur statements and self-contradictory phrases that, when released into the public sphere, would instantly delegitimize a public figure or institution? How did the analysts plan to leverage the technology to generate such strategic chaos that the enemy would literally discredit themselves? Tune in for our next episode, Project Poppycock, the weaponization of absurdity. Until then, remember, maintain your vigilance, question what you know, and keep your critical thinking sharp. I'll see you in the archives.